This is Support is Sexy, Episode 9 with spiritual teacher Barbara Biziou. Welcome to the Support is Sexy podcast. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, producer, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I talk to women entrepreneurs who share their journeys and the true stories of their wins and their lessons, and give you insight and inspiration to take your business and your life to the next level. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I am so happy to have you here. As you know, it just would not be the same without you. And today I am happy to introduce you to someone who has been so important to me for the past, 6 years now, since 2010. Her name is Barbara Biziou, and Barbara is a spiritual teacher and vision coach who has worked with people like Donna, Karan, and Gabby Bernstein, but thousands of students all around the world to help them have a more extraordinary life. And one of Barbara's focuses is working on vision boards with people. At least that's something that she has done with me, or when I've been a part of the workshops that she does in New York City every January. And I think I've only missed one in the past 6 years. And my year was a little bit off to start, honestly. I'm not even joking. One of the things that Barbara talks about, though, is that vision boards are not magic, but I believe they're magical in their own way. And we talk a little bit about that in this episode. So if you're someone who's looking at getting clarity around your vision, creating your vision board, and doing something that Barbara is a big proponent of, and she really walks this walk, and that is embracing the possibility of yes. I have learned that from Barbara, the importance of saying yes, even when we're afraid, even when we're not sure what's coming. Sometimes things come into our life. Actually, usually things come into our lives. We're not exactly sure what they are, but there's something in us that tells us that we should say yes. And too often we say no to play it safe because the ego wants to protect us, right? So listen to this episode, enjoy it, be open-minded. We talk a lot about business and a lot about spirituality, but it all comes together in a way that's what Barbara calls practical spirituality that you can apply to your life. So I hope you enjoy it. And without further ado, Barbara Biziou. So Barbara, thank you so much for joining us on the Support is Sexy podcast.
I am so happy to be here because the one thing that's really important to me is support and community.
Exactly.
So I'm thrilled.
Great. Thank you so much. So I have to ask you the question that I start with asking everyone. When did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
I think I always fell in love. I was always kind of the odd person out as far as not wanting to do things the quote traditional way and wanting to start my own projects and business. So I think I always kind of had that spirit.
You kind of always had that bug in you.
Right, even though I didn't know what it was called or what it meant, or I didn't and actually growing up, I never even heard of women who were entrepreneurs. It was not even a concept that existed, really. Women were either married and wives, or, they were nurses or teachers or, something traditional. So it didn't really even exist when I was growing up.
Right, and you grew up in Great Neck, New York?
I grew up on Long Island,
And what was it like? What was Barbara like as a little girl?
What was Barbara like? Strangely, because people who know me, who know that I make so much of my living talking to people, I was this kid with a book under a tree.
Interesting.
Yeah, or I was on my bike,
Mm-hmm.
or riding horses. I actually, in one sense, was a loner.
Did you have siblings? Yes, you had sister.
I have sister and brother, yeah.
Sister and brother. Yeah. And was spirituality and ritual, which is so much a part of your life now, was it a big part of your life then, or that came later in life?
No, it was actually a part of my life without me defining it. I grew up Jewish, but I was the only one in my family who had any interest. I used to go by myself to temple without anyone in my family. I made my parents send me to Hebrew school. I was just always really curious, and I remember having a friend who was Catholic, and I wanted to go spend Christmas with her because I wanted to know what it was like. And I think I was always really interested.
Isn't that something, how those things, we look back at our childhood, like, actually, that was always a thing for me. I just never knew what it was. You're just naturally drawn to it.
Right.
Yeah. So who were some of your greatest influences growing up or in your life?
The biggest influences for me probably came a little bit later in life, not necessarily when I was a kid. Um, so the people that, although when I was a kid, I mean, I was always fascinated by women who were like, Amelia Earhart kind of people, who
Mm.
were doing things very adventurous. I really admired those very brave, adventurous women. I thought that was very cool. And then, really growing up, I was very lucky to have some amazing spiritual teachers, and they really opened my eyes to the world of spirituality and ritual on a very different level.
How did you find these teachers? Did you seek them out because you were so curious about spirituality always, or was these people who were in the churches or temples that you went to?
Now, actually, like a lot of people, my first spiritual teacher came from, quote, an accident.
Uh
I
huh.
was actually in a car accident when
Oh.
I was in my 20s, and I had a little kid at the time. And I remember going to a doctor, and he told me that I was going to be in a wheelchair by the time I was 35, and that, I had a brain injury, and he scared the hell out of me,
Mm-hmm.
especially since, I mean, you know this, but my sister had died of a brain tumor maybe 4 years before that.
Mm-hmm.
So I was panicky. And I literally ran out of his office. You know how they say, get dressed and come talk to me? I
Right.
got dressed and left. I never went to talk to him.
You're
I've
like,
never
I've heard enough.
entire life. And I don't think, it was the first and only time. And I remember going home crying. And a friend of mine who was from Russia said, you have to come with me. My mother has this healer. I was living in LA. And she took me to Pasadena and introduced me to this woman, Rosalind Bruyere, who was a very famous healer at the time, and said to me, yes, you have some trauma, but it can be fixed easily. Go see this homeopathic acupuncturist in Santa Monica, who at the time, that was, nobody even knew what that was. It
Right.
was rare. And I remember going to see him, and not only did he, quote, cure me, but he and his wife were translating the works of the spiritual master Omram Mikhail Ivanov from French to English. And I joined their meditation group, and that's where I really learned about healing and meditation and spirituality. And that was my first real formal introduction. Again, it's amazing how spirit sends you to the right people at the right time.
Right. And kind of shakes up your world, so to speak, with the accident to push you in
Mhm.
that direction.
Absolutely.
Wow. Now, you mentioned your sister. I know she passed when she was 24,
Right.
and you were 6 weeks pregnant at the time, right?
Yeah.
With your son. So, was that something that after you didn't grieve during that time, was something that I read that you said that you were told actually not to grieve because you were pregnant, and I guess they thought that might affect the baby?
Well, that was a time, and I don't think people today can totally grok it in the same way, where number one, no one even mentioned the word cancer. You didn't even talk about it.
Right.
Everything was kind of like hush hush. People didn't talk about all this stuff. And I was told that, too much grieving could really hurt my child. I could be born with a deformed child. And, when you're in your 20s and these older women in their 40s, I look at it now, it's funny, they were in their 40s or 50s,
Right.
but it seemed like old to me. Were telling me this, I kind of believed them. So I was afraid to cry. I was afraid to grieve. I was afraid to express how I felt. And also, my marriage was kind of on the rocks, but I couldn't talk to anybody about it because no one wanted to hear it. I
Hmm.
remember saying to my mother, I don't want to go home. I was living in LA and I was back in New York then. And she said, no, you have to go back to your husband. I don't know if that would happen today or not. I guess it still would for a lot of people.
But like you said, it was a different time, a very different time.
Time, and because of it, I had to find some support, talk about support. And luckily, I had a friend who truly opened up her heart and home to me. And I remember going back to LA, and her grandparents had a beach house north of Malibu. And she said, you're going to come and spend the summer with me and heal. And I hardly even knew this woman. I had just met her. She was a new friend. And I just said, okay, like a wounded animal. And I went to her place in the beach, and really I healed. She helped me heal. And she was also my kind of partner in the spiritual quest because she was also interested. So we spent a lot of time in bookstores and reading and, going to lectures and finding out, all of this stuff that to us was very new.
Right. So that's another opportunity or another situation where you were pulled to the right person or drawn to the right person.
I really believe that when you are open, God sends you the right support and the right people and the right circumstances. And you just need to say yes, because that all happened to me and I could have said no. And if I had said no, I wouldn't have gone down that path. Maybe I would have years later, but you have to also be able to say yes to the support that's around you.
It's so funny. It's one of nearly my next question to you about saying yes, because having known you, I know there are plenty of times when you've said yes when you could have said no or been afraid. It's literally my next question. So interesting. Now, what year, just so we have a sense of time, what years were this when your sister passed and then you went to stay with the woman in Malibu?
My sister passed in 1971.
Okay, so around the...
been born then. Yes, so I'm it was, and it was the beginning of the women's movement. It was the beginning of a lot of huge changes, especially in the United States. So everything was being redefined, and there weren't any rules the way there used to be. There was a lot of exploration then.
Right, and you were involved with the women's movement too.
I was involved. My friend Julia, the one who invited me, and I used to go to meetings and, were very involved. And again, it was all such a new thing. Nobody quite understood what to do. It was very polarized, just like any movement that starts. Mm-hmm. All these rules. Like I remember people kind of getting pissed off at us because we like to wear lipstick and nail polish. And it's like a true feminist isn't supposed to get involved. It's like, it's bullshit. But, that's what happens. You see it in every movement. There are all these rigid rules of what's right or wrong. But it was an amazing time then because there was a lot of opportunity for experimenting.
Right. And for those who were brave enough to do so, they sort of became leaders of the movement.
Mm-hmm. And I became involved in a group of young mothers who, we started these conscious play groups where we would bring in, literally, we'd bring in a therapist one week to talk to us or someone to teach us how to make homemade baby food. We were very inventive. We had a newsletter, we were very involved in natural childbirth, all of this stuff. So it was all exciting, when you're young and excited and everything is new. Again, hard to explain this sometimes to people because they have no concept how new this was. I mean, no one went to yoga, it was like a very weird concept. I mean, I remember taking yoga then and people thought I was totally insane,
That's amazing. Now, as you mentioned, this thing that you have about saying yes, which is one of the things I love about you, without fully knowing what you're saying yes to sometimes, but just going with that feeling. How has that shaped your life overall? We talked about this one example, but what's another time or just overall how saying yes to things has really shaped your life?
It shaped my life because it helped me break out of the box. And I mean, I said yes being terrified a lot of the times. And I think that's important to mention, that it's not that I said yes because I just felt so confident. It just felt like, okay, if the universe is sending me this, there's something for me to explore, even if I don't know how to do it or what it is. So, for example, I wound up living in Europe. And someone said to me, you want to be in a movie. Now, I had never even thought about it. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't have a headshot. I mean, nothing. And I said, oh, sure. I showed up for an audition, truly not being trained, not knowing what to do. But I was there at the right time, at the right place, and I got the job. And it was like, and if also I showed up for things where I didn't get the job, but at least I tried. And I felt good about, trying.
Right. And you said
I was really terrified of being a boring person, to be honest. I think one of my motivators is I didn't want to be bored or boring. I wanted to be adventurous. Kind of my archetype was an adventurous, brave woman who was doing things.
Like an Amelia Earhart.
Like an Amelia Earhart, right.
This was your own version of that.
Trained, that is a little, looking back on it now, she spent hours and hours and hours learning her craft, so she was good at it.
Right. I love that. Now, were there ever any points during your journey where you felt like, oh, I should have said no to that? How do we know the difference of when we should, this is the universe sending us this thing, we should say yes, and when we should just say no? Is there a way to specifically know, or you kind of
You know,
go?
me and over the years, I've learned that if I don't trust my instincts and my body, I can make mistakes. So it's like I was talking about this in a workshop yesterday. We all have these internal aspects of the feminine and the masculine, and the feminine is the aspect that is the visionary, the dreamer, the expansion, the creativity, and the male is the one who takes that vision and actually grounds it and makes it happen. So your body gives you very strong messages if this is something that you should do or not do, if you really pay attention. You know, it's like we've all had it. I don't care if you're driving in a car and you get a message, I shouldn't take this parkway, I should go another way, or I shouldn't get on this subway, or I don't feel good about going to this dinner tonight, but you do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then a disaster. So part of it for me has been honing my intuitive guidance, because there are times that I haven't listened and it has been a disaster.
And how do we sort of hone that intuitive guidance? How do we tap into it? I know you can't say what it feels like for everyone, but is there
Well,
something?
usually it does feel like the answer is yes, it's a much more open feeling, a much more expansive feeling. And when it's no, a lot of times it's really a constriction of your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. My biggest thing is everyone needs a spiritual practice, and it doesn't have to be the same for everyone. I'm a big believer, as you know, in meditation and in taking time, especially in the morning, to set the tone and intention for the day. And when I don't do that, I can misread signs for me. So I don't care if it's doing Tai Chi, if it's consciously walking your dog, if it's just sitting with your cup of tea, if it's chanting, if it's praying, if it's reading inspirational literature. You need something that moves you to a higher level of vibration and connection with your intuition, your higher self, spirit, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And that's when you get much more clarity.
Right. That's wonderful. Now, when did spirituality and teaching and ritual become what you shaped your business around? Because this is what you do for people and creating workshops and those things for a living. So when did that become that thing for you that you said, this is how I'm going to shape my life?
Back in the 80s, I was in the fashion business, and which I really enjoyed. I really loved it. I was working with new designers and products and product development and everything. And somebody who I met randomly swimming in a lake up in Woodstock said to me they had just taken this personal growth course and it changed their life. And I was very intrigued. And I happened to be with two other friends at the time, so we all decided to sign up. And that is what started to shape my actual teaching. It was a 5-week course on really how to set goals. It was the first time I really learned about visualization and belief systems. And I got so involved in it, I wound up taking, of course, all the courses they had to teach and then training to teach it. So I started part-time because I was a single mother and I couldn't afford to quit my job, working during the day and at night once a week running this course, which then turned into also teaching meditation. And, it just kept building and building and building from there. So that was really the beginning of it. But it wasn't until actually my father died in the 90s that it was one of those wake-up calls that we all have, life is short, that I said, I'm going to try to do this full time. And that's when I started dipping into making it more of a career. That's when I officially started my company, and things like that. I still had one foot in more corporate, traditional, because I wanted to make sure I had enough money. And I think that's also important, is that it's hard to take big risks if you don't have some stability. If you're always worried about paying the rent, it's hard for that feminine creative part of you to be very creative because you're too worried about the day-to-day life. So you have to balance it somehow to make sure that you're taking care of your basic needs.
I think that's so important. I just had a conversation with someone about that the other day because we have this. First of all, there's this idea or illusion that people just quit their jobs and go do whatever kind of business or passion or creative thing. And some people have done that and been successful, but most of us are more stressed when we're trying to do this creative thing and make that creative thing pay the bills right away or cover our expenses. So we have these hangups about, my friend and I were talking about, you have this hangups about taking a job or any other kind of position because we feel like it's going to take away from the business or what we're doing. But actually it's looking at that as a support until the business can do whatever it needs to do. So
Absolutely. I mean, when I left fashion, I wound up going into television, and I can remember, I actually had more business on the side because I didn't need it. I
right.
literally was making a really good living in TV, so I could, I didn't need clients, so to speak. So when I had private clients, sometimes I'd see people before work or after work or on a weekend and I built it that way because I didn't, quote, need it. So there was a different energy around. I wasn't desperate.
Right.
And so then I could more easily make that transition. And strangely, and I know we've even talked about it, I've gotten more clients who come to me for, quote, spiritual guidance because they know I have been in the more corporate traditional world and they know that I could walk both worlds. If I had just been living in an ashram all this time, I'm not sure those people, others might have, would have felt safe enough to come to me for spiritual guidance.
Right.
If that was the only thing I did and I didn't understand the day-to-day practicality of the world.
Right. So it actually benefited your practice having that background.
Yeah, it did.
Absolutely.
And I remember working in TV, and I was actually working on Carney Wilson's show at one point, and I used to do space clearings we never told anyone because it was before you could talk about it really. Mm-hmm. But we would go after a show sometimes, and we clear the energy in the space. Wow. It was really interesting how that got integrated.
Right, before it became so popular. You did all of these things before our yoga studios started popping up and people were doing. I love it. Now, one of the things you mentioned was vision, which of course is how I met you through your vision board workshop. I think the first time I went was 2010. I think it was maybe 6 years. I can't believe it's that long ago. But I love them. Just so everyone knows, I do these with Barbara. Attend her vision board workshops every year in January, and it's just an important part of my routine for setting up the year. But Barbara, why do you think, well, first of all, how long have you been doing them? And then why do you think they're so effective, vision boards, that is?
I've been doing them for over 20 years, and I know that they're so effective because it's a real shift in consciousness. It makes it real for the brain. So when you're actually writing down these visions and goals and also have some pictures, visuals, it makes it very real to the brain. And it's a lot easier for then you to really magnetize what you want into your life. Again, it's not like magic, but the brain doesn't like discrepancies. So if it can really envision you having something, see it, touch it, feel it, have it, all your senses engaged, and you don't have it, it's going to do whatever it can to make it happen for you. So that's when all those synchronicities, pop up, where all of a sudden something on your vision board, you're in an elevator and that person walks in,
right?
Or the book falls off and hits you on the head, or, so that's part of it. And it's also a way of retraining the brain. It's like regrooving a river, to go in a different direction. Our brains are fabulous. So our neurons in the brains it's called plasticity. They're able to actually change and grow and change shape, and visualization is a very powerful way to do it.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned is that they're not magic. I know some people think, oh, well, vision board, if I put that up, these things will magically happen, or the vision board itself will make something happen, but that's not what it is. What do you think people misunderstand about vision boards?
I think, unfortunately, in our day and age, and I'll write for a lot of, blogs and stuff, and everybody wants the 5 easy steps to success.
Right.
The 5 easy rituals to change your life. Life isn't like that. I'm sorry. I wish it were, and sometimes it is. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. Magic can appear to happen. But the truth is people are forgetting there's a process. You're a gardener. Gardeners understand this better than anyone. You plant, a tomato plant or something, and you don't dig it up the next day. It's not ready. It has to ground. It has to root. You have to nourish it, take care of it. So there's a process. Some are shorter than others. Absolutely. Some happen immediately, but other things take time to grow and change. And it's important to be consistent with that vision and not let that, what I call the lower mind, take over and sabotage yourself. It's like, it's not going to happen. It's like being on a diet. Come on. You want to lose 20 pounds. You go on this, I don't care if it's a vegan diet or a gluten-free diet or whatever it is, you're not going to lose 20 pounds in one day.
Right.
You're just not. So thinking you are is magical thinking. It will take time, but if you're consistent, it will happen. It will work.
Right. And then I think it's just, as you said, people want these certain stories, five easy ways to success, 5 easy ways to this. But it's sort of just the world we're living in now. Everybody wants everything fast, but most things just take time.
Right. I always laugh because I remember someone saying to the Dalai Lama once, do I really have to meditate every day to find enlightenment?
Right.
I just looked at him and laughed. And it's like, yeah, you do.
No one has the time. Everyone's in a rush. No one has the time.
Right.
Now,
right.
Is there a right, quote unquote, right and wrong way to make a vision board? Or can people sort of, if someone wanted to start today, create a vision board, and it doesn't have to be in the beginning of the year, because you and I have worked together in the middle of the year, and sometimes we've done a personal one and a business one for my business. So is there a right and wrong way or tips that you have for people in creating one?
Well, I think the first thing is when you're doing a vision board, to set your vision, you want it to come truly from your higher authentic spirit and self. It shouldn't be coming, I just said should. It's not a good idea to come from all those shoulds. Mm-hmm. I should do this, I should do that, because you limit yourself too much. There's nothing wrong if you need to make a certain amount of money to survive or to take care of your family, to have in your vision, a certain amount of prosperity and money. However, most people make vision boards too much from a limited mindset, and they don't open up to a bigger possibility. So that's the first thing is you need, I think, and that's why, when you come to the vision workshops with me, I don't care if it's a one-day booster or a weekend, I always first do some kind of a clearing.
Right.
You want to let go of all that stuff that's blocking you. Then you want to hook up to a higher vibration, which means connect somehow to your higher guidance. And from that place, you do your vision board. And the other mistake people make is they put way too much on a vision board. I mean, even this week when I did a vision booster, I had people say to me, the first vision board I ever did, I know you told me not to do it, but I did it anyway. It was so chock full of things that I was exhausted. Most of them happened, but I had no time. I was exhausted. So people never allow space for the universe to bring you something better than you ever expected.
So, and that's literally leaving space between the images and the whatever other words, et cetera, that you have on your vision board. So not overlapping everything.
That's, I think, even if you don't know exactly what you want, what describes the essence? What gives you the feeling? Because that's really crucial. When I was trying to change jobs at one point, I didn't know what I wanted, and I made a vision board. And what was really on the board was working with conscious people, having new experiences. For me, it was important not to have to do the same thing every single day, being able to be creative, doing some traveling. I had all these things on my vision board, but I didn't know what the job was. And it wound up, and the story, I wound up being offered a job casting a TV show at CBS. It was working with conscious people. I traveled around the country auditioning people. Every day it was slightly different. I was learning all the time. So it had everything on my vision board. It really did, but I left space for the universe to send me the right vehicle.
Right. It was everything on your vision board, but it wasn't the exact thing that you didn't know exactly what it was.
I didn't write TV because I didn't know what it was.
Right.
It could have been something else. It could have been, Broadway. It could have been an art gallery. It could have been a museum. I mean, it could have been many different things. I just wanted those things to manifest.
I think that's important too, because sometimes we get so caught up on, no, I want it to be this specific thing or this specific title, or it's going to come this kind of way. And we don't leave space for it to show up in a different way. Or like I say, let go of the how. You just never know how it's coming, but you have to get a sense of the feeling of what you're looking for.
Right. And I mean, that's another kind of metaphysical tool, is that you focus on what you want, and you don't, it's not that you don't take action steps, because I think that's also important, to take action.
Right.
However, you leave room for some other things to come in that you might not have thought about. So for example, I knew that at one point after I wrote my books and everything, that I really would love to do some media, but I didn't really know what that meant. But I was very clear, and I visualized somehow reaching more people. And one day I literally got a phone call, I'll never forget this, from the Open Center saying, could you come down? We're thinking about doing some kind of a TV show. Would you come talk to us? And I said, oh, sure, because I've been teaching there for years. And I walked down. Unbeknownst to me, it was an audition. There was someone there literally with a camera wanting to audition me. Now, I had no makeup on. I didn't expect this. That's what's funny. And I just sat down and said, oh, what the heck? And I talked to him, and they cast me as the, quote, new age coach for Morgan Spurlock's 30 Days. So for 30 days, I was in a reality show on introducing some guy in New Jersey to yoga and meditation, and we took him on a fire. I mean, all this stuff. But I had no idea that's what I was really, looking for. I just knew I wanted to do media.
Right. And that's so many things that is so much about who you are and what you teach. Of one, saying yes, going down, like, sure, I'll go see what it's about. That idea of having it on your vision board, being open to how it shows up, and then just going with the flow. Like, oh, they're doing an audition. I didn't know. You didn't say, oh, no, I need to go home or come another day and put my makeup on or anything like that. It was sort of, I'm here, I'm going to go with it.
Right. And also, one other piece is when I went home and I thought about it, my prayer was very much, if this is in my highest good, let it happen. And if it's not, I'm willing to let it go. You asked
good.
about, so when something like that comes to me, that's always my prayer. If it's not in my highest good, I'm willing to let it go. And if it is, I would really like it to happen.
Right. So can you say it again? I love that. I'm going to adopt that right away. If this is in my highest good.
This is in my highest good, then, I really want it to happen and manifest. But if it's not, I'm willing to let it go and let something else come in that's even better.
I think that's a thing, too, for us to realize. Sometimes I think we get scared to let go of that thing that doesn't, like you said, our intuition might constrict and tell us, no, this isn't the right thing. But we're so afraid to say, no, this isn't the right thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's because we're always so afraid this is the only opportunity we will ever have, which, come on, it's really not true. I don't know if you saw it, but I posted it a few weeks ago. I interviewed a woman who just turned 100, and she is amazing. She lives alone. She looks fabulous. She's sharp as a tack. She watches CNN every night. She's up on what's going on in the world.
Wow.
She plays bridge. Most of her friends are 20 years younger, And one of the things I asked her is, what made you so vibrant at 100? And she was laughing. She goes, well, I don't really do everything right. I drink. I don't eat that right. I don't exercise so much. She goes, but I always am grateful, and I go with the flow. My life is que sera, sera. Let's just go with the flow. And I thought, wow, that's a really good piece of advice. She's grateful. She says yes a lot. She's open, and she is always ready for a new adventure. And she's 100.
And she's 100. Exactly. She's doing something right. I love it. Now, what about the power of rituals, which is very much a part of your life and your teachings, and why are they important in our lives, and how can people sort of start practicing rituals today?
Well, ritual is a very structured way of shifting your mindset. It really affects the brain very directly. And it's also a way to slow down, which is something we all need to do because we're all going way too fast and we're missing life. So by just having a morning ritual, and you have to set your intention on what it's to be. So if it's honoring your time and honoring other people. So my morning ritual is I always take time to meditate. For me, it's about I meditate, I journal, I might pick a card, but it doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes or an hour. I do it. That's my ritual to start my day off. Just things like birthdays or being with friends, make it a ritual of connection. Be present. Put your phone down.
Right.
Don't see each other. Just talk to each other. We need to make. I do rituals. I do wedding rituals. I do baby blessings. I do big things. I do space clearings. Mm-hmm. That's great and very important. However, I think the smaller things are just as important, if not more so.
Right, and people can start the smaller things right away. However, whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's why I wrote The Joy of Ritual and The Joy of Family Rituals, because I wanted people to have very simple exercises and rituals that they could do on a daily basis that didn't take a lot of time, but brought more meaning into their life and really gave them support. For me, rituals are real support.
Right, and it makes it feel not...
Looking at, I'm working on a new book and stuff, and I had just spent a month in India. So when I came back, it didn't feel totally right anymore to me, but I don't want to throw it out because there's a lot in it I want to keep, but I want to do I'm actually going to do it today or tomorrow because it's the summer solstice tomorrow. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do something where I'm going to do some kind of a ritual to shift it around, not throw it out because I don't want to throw it out, but I want to revamp it. I want to shift it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet, but I want to, maybe cut out pictures and move them all around in different order, just so it symbolically means I'm shifting some of the things or, changing them.
Now, what made you decide that this was something that you needed to do for this particular project? Is it just it didn't feel the same, as you said, and you want to go a different direction?
Well, that's what we talked about is trusting. So when I was in India, I was really immersed for almost an entire month in spiritual practice and ritual, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And I started to get clarity on what I really wanted to share with people. Mm-hmm. So I realized what I had thought I wanted to share was based a little bit too much for me on marketing, on what I thought would sell versus what my heart was really telling me. Mm. And so it's not that it's not valuable information, but it needs the energy of it needs to be more focused to what I feel is really valuable as opposed to what I think people will want to pay money for and buy. Does that, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. And that's all sometimes a hard
to buy it. It's not that I don't want it to be a bestseller, but the energy needs to come more from me wanting to share what I know is important and works in a way that will touch people.
Right. And that's sometimes, most of the time, a hard choice to make because so many of us go for, well, this is a thing that's going to sell, so I'm going to do this no matter how it makes me feel about myself, or this, I'm going to be on this show no matter how embarrassed I am to actually be on this show.
Right. And also the fact of, and I did an exercise also in this workshop on looking at where your, quote, glitches, roadblocks, failures were. And I saw that for me, all of them had to do with, even after all this time and being, quote, such an expert, thinking other people knew more than I did, giving away some of my power. It's like, oh, well, this is a marketing person. Oh, this is a publishing person. Oh, this is a New York Best Times set. You know what I mean? And rather than trust me that, no, this is what I want to do, I was listening to them. It's not that you shouldn't listen to people's idea and information, but then you have to decide for yourself if it's right.
Right.
And I was giving over too much of my power to other people. And we all know that doesn't work.
Right. And deciding if it's right, but if it's right for you, because what's right for you might not be right for someone else, etc.
Exactly.
Now, there's something you did at your Vision Boost yesterday that you wanted to share, some tips or advice that you have for us.
Right. Well, some of the things I was looking at how could people follow up on really manifesting? So the first thing I said is we have to constantly be clearing the slate. So you have to do whatever works for you. I happen to have certain spiritual tools that I do that, just like I take a shower in the morning to get rid of the quote dirt, I want to constantly be clearing out my mind of old thoughts or old beliefs or things that aren't working. So that's the first thing when you really want to be clear on your vision.
Mm-hmm.
The second is you need to keep your energy, like I said, aligned on a higher vibration. For me, that means a combination of meditation, exercise. We forget about our physical body too much. I know you run and do great things.
Right.
That's important. We have to take care of this vehicle as well as do things that keep our energy up, whether it's listening to fun music or, like I said, chanting or meditating or whatever works for you. It's important, and people forget this, to write down your goals. It's not enough just to have goals. You really need to ground it. That's part of the vision board exercise. You have to look at it. You need to write it. You need to focus. You need to get really clear. And you can always change them if it's not what you want later. But start with something and small, doable action steps that are consistent. Because if you don't take consistent action, nothing really ever happens.
Now, the power of writing, do you think actual with pen and paper, pencil and paper is stronger, or people sometimes just type in their phones or on the computer?
I know most people do it on their computer and their phones, but the research coming out of Harvard and places shows even students in college retain more information if they actually physically write it with a pen and paper.
Yeah, I'm like that too.
I know it's old-fashioned, but it's more effective. If you can't do that, then write it on a computer or something. But the act of actually hand-eye coordination, touching, writing, really makes a big difference. You also want to then visualize, spend a few, I think they say it takes a minimum of 68 seconds for the brain to really get what you want. So even if you spent a couple of minutes every day visualizing what you want, it's important to imagine what it feels like, tastes like, smells like, what's involved in it as a present reality, not in the future. You want to imagine you have it now.
So then, sort of saying like, I am whatever it is right now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I am in a fabulous relationship. I am prosperous, whatever. So you want to affirm it.
Right.
Then you really have to make a commitment. So 3 things I ask people to do is, what do you commit to being? What do you commit to doing? And what do you commit to giving? Because that's also important. You need to really be giving back. But you want to make those kind of commitments. And they don't have to be big, but you have to start someplace.
So what do you commit to being, giving, and doing?
Mm-hmm. So do you commit to being, a incredible artist? Do you commit to being a empathetic, heart-centered friend? It doesn't matter what it is, but you want to make some commitments. And then based on that, your actions want to support it.
Right.
It's also important. For me, I also work a lot with the power of language and claiming things like today I claim a healing miracle. Things like that for me are very important. And I find the power of owning. Someone once described it as, assuming you are a spiritual person, think of there's an entire room of angels and helpers sitting around like in an unemployment office waiting to get a job. And unless you call on them to help you, they're not going to come. So you have to actually request, your angels or ask them to come and partner with you and help you. Some people think it's silly, but most people I know it works.
I love that idea. They're sitting around waiting for a job to work for you,
yeah.
basically.
And the thing is, in the spiritual hierarchy or law, they can't interfere unless you ask, because you have free will. So we do have free will, and if we want to mess up, unless it's going to really do something horrible, they may not intervene.
Right.
So I know a lot of people, who I always used to laugh because they used to say to me, I hate my job. I want a new job. I hate my job. I hate my job. And then one day they'll call me up. I was just fired. And I guess, guess what? You've been affirming for it for the last 6 months and you didn't do anything. So your angel kind of gave you a nudge and said, okay, you're out.
Right.
You were the one who asked for it in the first place. So.
And it's funny because sometimes those people will be upset that they got fired and you're like, but I thought you didn't like your job. This is the opportunity to move on to something else.
Exactly. Yeah. And then just what your whole idea, you have to have support. Getting support opens up possibilities. So I know I am not great in certain things. So I have a client who's brilliant at social media and really good at websites. So she is helping me because that's not my specialty. I am helping her, do other things because that's my specialty, that I'm good. You need support. You can't be great at everything, and I don't know why we think, especially women, we have to always do it by ourselves or we're not strong, powerful women. There's a power in asking for help. And I don't mean being a victim or powerless, but I know I need an accountant because that's not my strength in life. I'm not going to. Why should it take me 40 hours when it could take him 2?
Right.
That's not a good use of my time and energy. So if you don't have the money to pay somebody, then what can you barter that's worth it? You have something that you're good at. So what can you then offer in exchange for the help that you need?
I think that's so important. Like you said, if nothing else, we're all about support around here. Support is sexy. But if nothing else, in thinking about the amount of time you'll save when you give someone who's a specialist in whatever area it is, an accountant, social media, as opposed to, no, I need to do it all myself and spend 50 hours on it when the other person could do it in such a short amount of time. It's more productive for you and for them. We don't even look at the practical part of it because we want to do it ourselves.
Yeah, I always laugh. It's like, what do we think we do? We're not growing our own food. We're not making our own clothes, right? We're not building our own houses unless you're an exceptional person. So why can't we ask for the support that we need? That was one of the things going back when I was younger, and I had this play group. We supported each other in learning how to become mothers. We babysat for each other. We helped each other, we did things because we were all learning at the same time and we didn't know how to do it.
Right. So sometimes that's a good point. You can support each other in the things that you don't know. You all don't know. You're all going to discover and find out together.
Right.
I love that.
As opposed to having to do it all by yourself, which is very alienating. And I think so many people, sometimes I think people come to my workshops just to connect to other like-minded people. They don't even care what I'm teaching. Want to be around people who are wanting to learn and grow and have open hearts, that the community itself is just as important as what they're going to learn.
So what does your support network look like now?
I am very, very blessed. I have people literally all over the world who, are there for me in different ways. So I do have a very strong community and I'm very lucky. And it's different ages, which I also like. Like I said, I love the fact that if I'm trying to do something in my business with just say like social media or whatever, I can call in someone 25 years younger than me. But if I also need help on mentoring something, maybe I'll call in somebody older than me, or I have my own peers, who we can really help each other. I think it's good to have different kinds of people who have different skills. If everybody just has the same skill set, it's very hard to grow.
Right.
You need people who know how to do things slightly differently and give you a different perspective, who are honest, but who have your best interest in heart. You want people who are going to go, wait a minute, Elayne, you are off track, honey.
Right.
However, let me help you get back on track.
Right.
You don't want people to go, oh, no, you're doing everything wonderful when you're not. That's not going to help you.
Right. That's not support.
No, that's really not support.
Yeah. So what's next for you? What are you most excited about today? I know you're working on your book or restructuring your book, but what other kind of things are you excited about today?
I'm excited about taking people on spiritual adventures. So right now I'm doing it in New York I have something Spirituality in the City, where I take people to especially the ancient Egypt collection at the Met, where I introduced them to the rituals and practices, to the American Museum of the Native American. I'm going to take people to the Ganesh Temple in Queens, but I'm also going to start traveling and hopefully doing some kind of web or media on rituals around the world. That I'm excited about, because I love traveling and I love introducing people to the practices and rituals that really work and are fun and exciting that they may not know about.
I love that. And we'll have links for everyone on the show notes so people can go to your website and see all the work you've done with rituals and about spirituality in the city and all of those things. So I'll make sure people know where to find it, and your book, of course. So I have one last question. I want to be conscious of your time. If you think over your life and career, and you had a chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be, and what would you say?
Wow. God, there's so many people, but who pops to mind today, and it's interesting, is my brother. My brother has really always supported me, even if he didn't totally understand what I was doing. And he was, a real backbone for me. And he encouraged me to take risks and to take time and to do things. And he is one of my main supports in life. He really is. Even now, with my mother being older, we share taking care of my mother. He always, when I went to India, he made sure he was there. When he went off to someplace else, I made sure I was there. But he's always been a real support for me, and I'm very blessed by that.
I love it. That's beautiful. So before we go, I want to just thank you and acknowledge you for all of the powerful work that you've done for me and for so many people in helping us manifest our vision or even come up with what we want for our lives. And just the work that you do, this. I just love you and think you're incredible, and the things that you're bringing to this world. I just want more and more people to know about it. So I'm so happy you took time to talk to us today. Yeah, and share this. You've been, I will tell everyone that I think there was one year where I was out of town and I missed doing the vision board. Right. Yes. Oh my goodness, that January was horrible. The year just was off track until I was able to come see you, and I haven't missed another one. I mean, unless some extenuating circumstance, but I've been there. But I could definitely tell the difference having not done one in the beginning of that year. So I know how powerful working with you is. So I'm glad more people.
Well, I'm going to interview you too, because I have lots and lots of videos on my website, but I'm going to also start doing a whole new series. I have the best roof in New York, and I'm going to do a whole thing up on my roof.
Oh, nice.
Little teaching videos up on my roof.
Oh, so, I love it. I can't
visit me on my roof.
I can't wait. So last thing before we go, do you have a parting piece of advice for our listeners? Something that you want to share?
I think it's my favorite quote, and it really says, somebody out there needs you, so live your life so that person could find you.
Nice. I love it. Barbara Biziou, thank you so much. Hold on one second. All right. Thank you so much for listening to that episode of the Support is Sexy podcast. And I do hope that you got some inspiration from it. And the challenge is for you to do at least one thing. Take one thing from the episode, at least one thing. You can always do more, but at least one thing that will help you move one step closer to your dream. Whether that's launching a business, writing a book, whatever that thing is that you want to do, take something from this episode and move one step closer. And what I'll also ask of you, if you can tell me what you think about the episodes, what we've been doing, what you want to hear, what you like, what you experience while you're listening, go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let me know what's going on. What are you thinking? What are you feeling about the show? What else can I do to be of service to you, which is what this is all about, to be of support to you. That's our buzzword, right? You can also go to my website, elaynefluker.com/podcast. So that's ELAYNEFLUKER.com/podcast. Hear more episodes there. Also have a bunch of great videos, tons of information. It's where I'm going to be spending a lot of time, and it's where I love to connect with you. So again, thank you so much for listening. I truly appreciate you and your support. And the most important thing I want you to remember is having it all does not mean doing it all alone. So now, go out there and create something sexy, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.